everyone. Good evening. Good afternoon. Sorry. Uh, we're here to share some information about silent data breach, unintended exposure of sensitive information in Microsoft Enterprise Enrollment, Entra, and Intune. Okay, let me start with my background. I am a seasoned cybersecurity professional for over 8 years. Mostly, I do incident response, vulnerability management, antivirus management, and some compliance. I also do detection engineering, which is mostly creating detections based on use cases. Currently working as CSERT in Verizon Philippines, and I enjoyed lateral movements, investigations, and conducting deep root analysis for incident response. And also handled multiple industries like uh, gasoline industries, electric industries, and such. So yeah, you can call me Matt. And here's Jeff.
Hello. Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm Jeffrey. Some of you may know me as offline is Lexer, offline is new Lexery. Some of you may know me on LinkedIn. So I'm currently working as a lead cybersecurity assessment at Dacta Global. Essentially, it's a cybersecurity company, a boutique cybersecurity company at Singapore and headquarter in Switzerland. Um, what's basically the service that we offer, such as pen testing, GRC, integrations and implementation, MSSP or SOC as a service, and lastly, it's a academy. So apart from my day-to-day job, I also actively participate in background program with findings recognized by some of the most world recognized or world respected company such as Apple, Oracle, Morgan Stanley, Toyota, and many more. And during my research, I discovered four CVs. Some of my early work back in 2023 and 2024, and also have the privilege to speak at Black Hat Arsenal in Singapore, and last 3 weeks at B-Sides Bristol in UK, in London. And yeah, without further ado, let's dive into the agenda. Give me a sec. All right. So we'll start with an introduction to the Microsoft Enterprise Enrollment. Basically, this will give everyone a baseline understanding how this um, service fits together, like why they often seen by default in most organizations. Next, we'll walk you through the silent data breach. This is something we um, uncovered in our previous external pentest engagement. And then next, we'll walk you through to the how we abuse the default settings in Microsoft Entra with a compromised service account. And then from there, we look how these default settings, and then after that, we'll analyze the security implication, and then we'll wrap up the best practice, including the closings and QA and remarks. So yeah, over to you, Matt.
Okay, let's start with Microsoft Entra. Microsoft Entra is like an identity access management and mostly, hold on. Is it used for identity access management? As at its core, it is Azure Active Directory, now rebranded as Microsoft Entra ID. It handles authentication and authorization, such as sign-in, single sign-on, multi-factor authenticator, uh, condition access, and role-based access. Its job is simple but critical, making sure that the right people only has the access. It is also tied with Office 365, Teams, SharePoint, Outlook, and other applications with Microsoft that have partnered with. Using Microsoft Entra, it is not optional as it serves as a backbone of the identity, access, and management. Next is Microsoft Intune. It is also known as Endpoint Manager. Microsoft Intune. So it is also known as Endpoint Manager. It provides multiple device management and device management application. It maintains it's used to manage company devices such as laptops, desktop, and mobile devices. It can also enforce security policies like PIN, biometrics, and in short, 2MFA. It also blocks jailbroken devices, encrypts storage, deploy storage, deploy apps like Outlook Teams. It can also wipe corporate data if the device is stolen or lost. It can also ensure the device is compliant for compliance purposes. This is why we use Microsoft Entra as a backbone. So next is Microsoft Enterprise Enrollment. So its main purpose is for only enrollment and licensing. It is centralized for scalability and uh, mostly scalability. To summarize, um, Entra ID is for authentication and authorization. So, and then Intune is for to manage apps and devices. Enterprise enrollment is for licensing and scalability. Together, three of these are the foundation of Microsoft. They are all for default as a default. Okay. What's this talk about? These days, data breaches are a big risk for companies of every size. While the news often talks about advanced hacking attacks, there are also quieter but serious problem. Sensitive information getting exposed because of simple setup mistakes in common businesses. This talks looks at the key weakness in Microsoft Enterprise Enrollment, Entra ID, and Intune combined, with where default settings can accidentally leak important user informations without any noticing. Next is Jeff.
All right. Um, so here, in Microsoft Entra or Azure, it is unchecked by default. Historically the reason why because in unchecked by default because what you call this self-service tasks like MFA, um, password reset app, consent, security info updates were handled inside Entra admin portal. That's the reason why Microsoft let this unchecked or access open. So those, those for what you call this backward compatibility. So it won't affect or didn't break for older tenants, and this means that you can you can restrict admin center from admin by without further breaking any integrations on the Microsoft Entra. Then next slide is so this attack sequence. This is how we abuse basically. I'll walk you through on this slide how this played out on our in real engagement. So basically, what happens here is the team and I were conducting black box pen testing or external pen test engagement. Basically, there's no insider knowledge, just the company's domain name. So while we're exploring on the company domain, we stumble upon a subdomain hosting an insecure site, and so these kinds of subdomain sites are often not secure as hardened in the main website. So on this site, as you can see here, we basically found a publicly accessible.zip file. So this zip file, their insides were there were credentials. So lots of them, development accounts, UAT accounts, even some productions ones. So there's one entry there that highlighted in red that stood out. It's service account used for SMTP. So you know SMTP, which is the protocol for, I mean, responsible for sending emails. Then next slide. So here, as you can see here, so using this SMTP service, you know, most of the service accounts don't have MFA enabled. So because they are designed for automation and unintended tasks. So to illustrate the risks, what we did in our previous engagement is we tried logging into office.com and using one of these service accounts, and sure enough, it worked without any additional, verifications. So at the bottom, these are the three links. Actually, you can actually try it on your laptop. So basically, these are the three URLs that you can use to access using the using any account that you have. Because what you can see here is the enterprise enrollment dot yourcompanyname.com. If it's not possible, you can use intune.microsoft.com or Entra in Microsoft.com. Now, next slide. So at first we thought, as you can see here, the account might be useless because it had no mailbox, as you can see on the left side. But right away, I knew this was a serious discovery, having leaked credentials or service accounts on an exposed website. So it is a critical issue. However, based on our experience as a pen tester, I also knew that if we reported this to the client's ID team or the manager without any deeper analysis, the client's IT team or developer usually might brush it off, saying, oh, it's just a development account and no big deal. So basically, they're trying to downplay the risk. But then I remembered there is a misconfiguration, as we mentioned earlier, that we've seen before, that in some company, most of the company rather, are for Microsoft Entra environments, any authenticated user can access the admin portal, just what I show you, these three links at the bottom. So going back, so when we log into admin portal, and we tested and we were able to sign in. So on the next slide, so this is what the really impact, becomes clear to the client, or this is when the risk becomes undeniable. Using only the SMTP service account credentials we found in the exposed zip file or insecure subdomain, we're able to sign into the Microsoft Cloud. And because the service accounts that typically don't have MFA or multi-factor authentication, we were able to log in, succeeded without any extra challenge. So here's what I saw in the Microsoft Intune Admin Center, and at the right side, as you can see here, you can see there were 4,312 users found that exposed the entire corporate directory of the company, and that mean is that we now had access to the entire corporate directory. So we have thousands of employees with full names, job, title, emails, phone numbers, and office location. From there, you can even actually see their start date in the company. So if you wanna, like, for example, you wanna see your colleague when they did start, you can actually see that as well. But the real thing here is we didn't use malware and we didn't exploit a CVE. We simply log in, but of course, it's a precondition scenario wherein we expose service account, which meant to be for sending emails. and it had no MFA. And it because of the default intro settings, we were able to enumerate every user in the organization. So to an attacker or to an external pentest engagement or black box or red teaming engagement, for us this is gold because it's instant collecting information or reconnaissance. It's basically a complete map of the companies. Imagine you don't need to have a jump box because in a typical red teaming engagement or in a typical assume breach engagement, we were provided by jump hosts to connect to the corporate network. But in this case, without any credentials, I mean, without having any credentials from the company, we were able to abuse this from the from the what do you call this from the insecure subdomain website, and then we leverage the default settings or misconfigured default settings in Microsoft Entra. So this is why we call it a silent breach, because everything here looks like normal activity, but in reality, the sensitive personal data has already walked out the door. So next slide. So for the next slide, so here the diagram summarize of the entire attack chain, basically the step by step. As you can see here, we started when we discovered a service account, and then there's account hidden in the expose file. Since the accounts are, you know, as I mentioned, don't have MFA, we were able to log in with just the username and password without any challenge. Then from there, we could access the Entra admin portal, which is by default can access by anyone, even for service account. So once we inside, we perform directory enumeration, and then we're pulling a list of thousands of users. So that quickly escalated into an export, which actually, if you go back here, there's all options there to download all the entire 4,312 users, which contains the PII of all of the entire directory of the company. So this is by default in most company. And the next slide is format for security applications.
Okay, what are the risks with this? Think of it as a bucket with holes. Once the default is abused, the data starts leaking in multiple ways. So, for example, like you can use in reconnaissance, PII exposures. That leads to direct social engineering risk by targeted phishing or spear phishing. Once attacked have the personal information, it becomes fuel for highly targeted phishing. These attacks looks real because they are based on real data. And finally, attack surface expansion. All this knowledge with the users are what roles they hold, makes such as easier for attackers to escalate privilege and admin together with additional attacks. So one weak service account can be a problem to the whole organization. For example, like let's say an admin is being compromised, it can be used on data monetization on dark web, regular and legal consequence, reputation and customer threat. Next, Jeff.
All right, for the next slide. So when I first submitted this talk to B-Sides Lids in UK, one of the reviewer actually they give me feedback on why I mean it's on May 9 actually. They asked me a very fair question. If has this had this been or had this issue been responsibly disclosed to Microsoft company. So that feedback actually stuck with me. So what I did, basically what happened is when I submit in B-side leads, I was rejected or our talk. So the very next day, which that was May 10, I submitted the vulnerability to the Microsoft through their RC program or Microsoft Security Research, and then they acknowledge it, as you can see at the right. Um, and on May 23, actually, they came back to me with their response that after their investigation, and it's actually in the next slide, that this case, I mean, this reported vulnerability were did not meet their bar for servicing or bar for fixing, because as I mentioned before, the behavior is by design or intentionally. So the Microsoft points us to the documentation that explains how admins can actually restrict this those for permissions if they choose. Hello, sorry. All right, let's go back. Sorry. Um, yeah, on the next slide, as you can see here, this is by design. So basically, I didn't get any, any reward from Microsoft, but rather they plug it as by design. So didn't get any reward. So, but it's okay. Now let's move on to actually Microsoft, they asked me, just to add, they asked me to submit this presentation to them for review. So that's, I like about Microsoft, they actually verified this slide. So next slide will be the best practice for mitigation. Over to you, man.
Okay, what are the best practice for this type of compromise or attack? Okay, you should restrict admin access. Only admin should access the entra microsoft.com. Uh, Restrict tenant creation, like for example, like only there is a specific range of IP address that can be accessed only by the admin for it to log into this uh, Microsoft Entra. So the executive takeaway is don't wait for attackers to weaponize insecure defaults. Lock down the admin center, restrict tenant creation, and monitor for abuse. Okay, for the Microsoft condition access, to protect service accounts if credentials are leaked, conditional access can add extra layers defense. For example, by limiting logins, to trusted IP ranges and geolocations, targeting only required apps or APIs, enforcing compliant device, blocking legacy authentication, and even using risk-based policies and to stop suspicious sign-ins. This way, even if a password leaks, attackers outside those boundaries can't abuse it. So in practice, conditional access doesn't just stop attackers of at the password, it creates multiple layers of friction. Okay, for the recap.
All right, so recap the silent data breach. So to wrap this up, a single low privilege, a single service account privilege or low privilege combined with insecure defaults of Microsoft Entra was enough to expose thousands of users or thousands of PI exposed. So no exploits, no malware, just default left unchecked. And the risk, dark web, web resale, phishing, GDPR fines, or any other compliance, lost trust. The fix is just simple, just restrict enter admin, enable that options in intra-admin center access. And you can also use enforce conditional access with IP and geolocation restrictions. So takeaway here is one leak account plus insecure default is equals to silent breach. So yeah, don't wait for someone or lock it down before someone else does. And that's all. Questions answer. Any questions from the crowd?
Hello, hello. Okay, any questions from anyone? Going once, going twice, three
Question?
times. No, no, no questions. All good, all understood. Okay, so again, let's give a round of applause for our speakers.
Thank you, everyone. Is it okay, guys, if we take a groupie
A goofy, of course, of
for
course. We,
for
of
for,
course,
uh,
you know,
for souvenir reference?
if you take the shot,
Yeah.
yeah, the shot on the table. Okay, count. Three,
Cheese.
2, 1, cheers.
Man,
Oh,
last one. Sorry.
last one. Okay, may ba? Okay, thank you guys. Great stuff.
Lastly,
Set up ka na, sir.
all right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us here.
Of
Appreciate it.
course, of course. Thank you so much for the talk.